Marsh never planned to leave Earth, and he certainly never planned to fall out of the sky like broken luggage over a world he did not know. Yet that was exactly what happened on the day his life cracked open. It had started quietly, too quietly for a man who usually filled his mornings with noise to distract himself from the loneliness in his apartment. But that morning he felt restless, like some invisible hand nudged him toward a choice he had not yet made. He took his old glider out to the cliffs where he used to practice flying during college. The wind was strong enough to hold him but gentle enough not to punish him. Like that balance, it made him feel as if the world still had room for people like him, ordinary, unnoticed, but still breathing. His father had once told him that flight was about trusting the air more than trusting yourself. Tried, every time, to believe that. The takeoff was perfect. The sky was a wide blue sheet above him, cool and welcoming. He glided for several calm minutes, watching sunlight slide across the ocean. But then the air changed. A strange humming vibration crawled up the frame of his glider. The wind twisted in a direction no weather chart had ever promised. Before he could react, a shimmering crack opened ahead of him, thin as glass, bright as lightning, silent as fear. Had just enough time to whisper, "What is that?" before the crack widened and swallowed him. He felt nothing at first. No pain, no pressure, no sound. Only light, fierce, swirling light that wrapped around him like a storm of mirrors. He lost track of the glider. He lost track of the sky. For a moment he wondered if he had died. But then gravity slammed into him again, and the world returned with violent clarity. He crashed through something soft, tore through curtains of fabric, and landed hard in the center of a circular platform. The air smelled of flowers he did not recognize, sharp like citrus but warm like honey. Music stopped. Voices gasped. Lay groaning, blinking dust out of his eyes. When he finally pushed himself to his elbows, he realized he was surrounded. Dozens of tall figures stood in elegant robes of silver and teal, their skin shimmering like moonlit stone. Their eyes glowed faintly, and their expressions ranged from shock to irritation. At the platform's far end stood a woman, though woman felt like an incomplete word for her. She was alien, unmistakably so, with luminous violet skin and hair that looked like flowing strands of starlight. A thin silver crown rested on her head, and her posture was regal yet trembling. Her eyes locked onto with a mixture of disbelief and something dangerously close to fury. He had crashed straight into her wedding. Felt his stomach drop. He looked around desperately for something familiar, but everything shimmered with strangeness. The towering crystalline pillars, the floating lanterns, the guests who stood frozen as though afraid to breathe. I'm so sorry," he managed. His voice echoed embarrassingly loud. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some pointed, some stepped back. A few guards moved closer, gripping weapons shaped like curved glass. The alien bride took a hesitant step forward. Her voice, when she spoke, sounded like a chord of music bending into words. "Human," she said slowly, tasting the term. "You should not be here." Swallowed hard. "Trust me, I didn't mean to be." The bride's gaze flicked to the broken decorations around him, then to her guests, then back to him. Something in her expression softened for a heartbeat, but it vanished quickly. "This ceremony is sacred," she whispered. "You have interrupted something that cannot be undone." Didn't understand her world, her customs, or the danger he had just thrown himself into. But he knew one thing with painful certainty. He had fallen into the middle of a destiny that was never meant for him. And yet somehow it had begun to pull him in. For several long breaths, remained on his knees, staring up at the alien bride as if she were the only solid thing in a world made of shifting colors. The crowd still buzzed with confusion, but she did not lower her gaze. Her eyes, deep silver with tiny specks of white, as if stars were trapped inside, studied him as though he were a living puzzle that had cracked open on her stage. Her name, he would soon learn, was of the 7th Moon Court. But for now she was only the stranger whose life he had tripped into, whose sacred ceremony he had shattered like fragile glass. The guards moved closer. Their armor hummed with low energy, and one lifted a crystalline spear towards chest, raised her hand sharply. "No," she commanded. The guard froze instantly, felt a rush of relief so powerful it made his limbs shake. Walked down from the platform, the long, shimmering fabric of her wedding robes flowing behind her like a river of light. When she stood only a few steps away, noticed she was trembling, not with fear, but with something sharper and quieter. A wound that wasn't physical. "You came through a breach," she said softly. "A natural tear should not open here, not today." Forced himself to stand even though his ribs ached. "I don't know how it happened. One moment I was flying, the next I was falling out of the universe." Stared at him. Then she asked a simple question, but one that carried the weight of a kingdom. "Are you alone?" He nodded. There was a flicker of recognition in her eyes. Not joy, not sadness, but the quiet understanding of someone who knew what loneliness felt like. Before she could speak again, a loud voice echoed from behind her. A tall alien man with silver bands across his chest stormed forward, his expression twisted with anger. "Remove him at once," he thundered. "Your union ceremony has been desecrated. The omens will be against us." Guessed this man was her groom. Stiffened, but she kept her voice steady. "He is lost. He did not choose to fall here." Scowled, "His presence ruins the binding. The vows cannot proceed after such a sign. You know the laws. The Elder Council will reject our union if we continue." His hands clenched at her sides. For a moment she seemed small beneath the weight of duty pressing down on her. Watched her struggle, and some instinct in him, something foolish, something human, made him want to step between them even though he knew nothing about their world. He didn't, but he wanted to. Looked around at her guests, at the broken decorations, at the empty altar where she should have stood exchanging ancient vows. Then she turned her gaze back to, voice low and trembling. "Maybe the sign is not against us," she said. "Maybe it is guiding something we do not yet understand." "That human's voice cracked with disbelief. "You speak as though he holds meaning." Did not answer, and that silence was louder than any words. His anger flared. "The council will hear of this. They will not tolerate such disgrace." He spun away, his ceremonial robe sweeping angrily behind him as he exited the hall. The guests slowly followed, whispering harshly. The guards stepped back, unsure whether they should escort out or wait for instructions. Soon only, and remained in the vast crystalline chamber. The silence between them was heavy but strangely calm. Approached him, her expression softer than before. "I wish I could apologize for how my people reacted," she said quietly. "But today was meant to shape the future of my court. Now everything is uncertain." Lowered his head. "I didn't want to ruin your life." Took a slow breath. "You didn't. Something else did that long before you fell here." He looked up, surprised by the sorrow in her voice. "You don't seem happy about the wedding." She hesitated. "My marriage was not chosen by my heart. It was chosen by duty, and duty can become a cage even before it closes." Didn't know what comfort a stranger could offer a woman from another world, but he found himself saying gently, "Maybe accidents happened because something needed to change." His breath caught. She stared at him, not in fear, not in anger, but in a strange, unspoken recognition. "Come," she said suddenly. "You should not stand alone in this place. I will take you somewhere safe until we decide what must be done." Followed her out of the shattered hall, unaware that this single step would pull him deeper into a destiny neither of them had imagined. Led through winding hallways carved from crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The air felt warmer here, gentler, as if the palace itself could sense his confusion and was trying to ease it. Every step echoed quietly, reminding how out of place he was. He walked a few paces behind, afraid to get too close, afraid to fall too far behind, afraid of everything, and yet oddly calm beside her. They reached a circular room with a ceiling shaped like a flower opening toward the sky. Sliding panels of glass folded back, revealing a soft violet sunset. Strange birds drifted across it, their wings leaving trails of shimmering dust. It felt less like a room and more like a sanctuary that had been waiting for someone who needed it. "This place is usually reserved for guests of honor," said, "but it is the only place where the council will not disturb us with questions." Sank onto a round cushion near the window, exhaling shakily. "I don't think I qualify as a guest of honor." A small smile touched her lips. Perhaps not, but you have created enough chaos for one. He laughed, a short, nervous sound. I'd give anything to undo the trouble I caused. Grew quiet, she stood by the open window, the breeze lifting strands of her glowing hair. The trouble was already here, she whispered. You only revealed it. Watched her, sensing she carried a pain much deeper than a ruined ceremony. What happened? He asked gently. She hesitated. The world outside cast violet shadows across her face. My court expects me to lead them into an alliance, but alliances here are not written on paper, they are sealed through marriage. A future ruler is expected to choose duty above all else. Even if it hurts, asked. Especially if it hurts, she said softly. A strange heaviness fell between them. Didn't know this world, didn't know its rules, but pain was universal. Duty was universal. Loneliness was universal. He understood those things well enough. He shifted slightly, feeling the bruise on his side from the fall. She noticed. You are injured, said, stepping toward him. It's nothing, lied, wincing when he moved his shoulder. She raised her hand. Light gathered at her fingertips, soft and pale. May I? He nodded. Her touch hovered above his bruised skin, not quite touching him, yet warmth spread through him like sunlight. The ache faded, replaced by a calm he hadn't felt in years. Blinked, surprised. Your people can heal. Only small things, she said. Pain leaves scars the body cannot hide. It is better to ease the ones we can. Her voice trembled slightly, as if she spoke not only about him. When she finished, sat up. Thank you, he murmured. Stepped back, folding her hands. You should rest here tonight. Tomorrow the council will demand explanations. And if they don't like my explanation? Asked. Held his gaze. Then I will stand with you. He felt something warm stir in his chest. Why, you don't even know me. Her eyes softened. Because for the first time in a long while, I do not feel alone. The confession struck like a quiet thunder. He looked away, unable to hold her gaze. He didn't know why her words shook him so deeply, maybe because they echoed something inside him he had never spoken aloud. The sky outside darkened to deep indigo. Stars blossomed across it, sharp and beautiful, touched a glowing panel, and a soft light filled the room. You should sleep, she said. I will return in the morning. Nodded, though his chest felt heavy with thoughts he couldn't name. Paused at the doorway. Whatever happens next, I do not believe your fall was meaningless. Then she left, her footsteps fading into the quiet hall. Lay back on the cushion, staring up at the star-shaped ceiling. He had crashed into a stranger's destiny. Now he wondered if he had somehow stepped into his own. Morning light spilled into the sanctuary, soft and golden. Sat up slowly, muscles stiff from the floor. The room felt emptier without presence, though the memory of her warmth lingered like a soft echo. Today, he realized, nothing would be simple. The council would not forgive an accidental intruder. He had no idea what awaited him beyond the sanctuary walls. Returned quietly, her violet hair now braided neatly for the day, her robes glinting with ceremonial silver. There was determination in her stride, and for the first time saw the full weight of her authority. Her eyes met his, calm yet fierce. We must face them, she said softly. They will question you, they may not believe your story. Swallowed, I don't even know if I belong in this world. Perhaps, she admitted, but you are here and that counts for something. They walked through endless corridors, walls glimmering like frozen rivers of light. Every step toward the council hall tightened the knot in stomach. Outside, the palace thrummed with life, servants, guards, and emissaries preparing for what seemed like an extraordinary trial. The alien citizens whispered in their melodic language as he passed, eyes wide with curiosity or judgment. Finally, they arrived at a massive door, carved with runes that pulsed faintly, paused and placed a hand on the surface. The door opened smoothly at her touch. Inside, the council waited. A semicircle of figures sat on elevated platforms, each adorned in robes of white and silver, their faces ancient yet stern. Their eyes, unblinking, regarded like a storm waiting to break. He felt the full force of their scrutiny and realized how small he was in comparison. stepped forward. "Esteemed council," she said, her voice steady. "This human entered our world through no fault of his own. He seeks only to leave peacefully." One of the council members, taller than the others and with glowing eyes that pierced the air, spoke. "Your wedding was meant to unify the seventh moon court. The human's intrusion breaks the sacred alignment of stars and fate. How do you justify interference in our destiny?" His throat tightened. He wanted to speak, but the words refused to form. He could only stand silently, hoping strength would carry him. Another council member leaned forward, voice smooth and dangerous. "Do you understand that your presence here could endanger the balance of this court? That a single human, ignorant and untrained in our ways, could unravel centuries of careful planning?" His hands trembled. I didn't mean to," he finally stammered. "I never wanted to hurt anyone. I didn't choose this." A deep murmur rippled through the council. Some frowned, some tilted their heads, some thought seemed almost intrigued. Stepped closer to him, placing a hand lightly on his arm. "He does not belong to this world, yet he has arrived," she said firmly. "Perhaps the stars have chosen differently than we expected. Perhaps what appears as chaos carries its own meaning." The head of the council leaned back, expression unreadable. "You speak boldly of the seventh moon court. Do you place your will above the sacred order?" "I place the truth above fear," she replied. "And the truth is that his arrival has opened my eyes to the path I have been forced to follow. I will not marry out of duty alone. I will choose my own life." A silence fell over the hall. The council's whispers became still. Even the stars outside seemed to pause, their light sharpening. His heart raced. He had not expected to witness rebellion, to see a bride challenge centuries of tradition. But here she was, radiant and fearless, standing beside him. The head of the council's eyes softened slightly. "Very well," the ancient voice said. "We will observe, but know this, your choice may bring honor or disaster upon the court. The consequences are yours to bear." Inclined her head, firm and resolute. For the first time, felt a flicker of hope. Somehow, by crashing into a world that was not his, he had found himself beside someone willing to fight for what was right. As they left the council hall together, realized the weight of the day had lifted slightly. Had chosen to defend him. She had chosen to defend herself. And in that choice, a bridge between their worlds had begun to form, a fragile bridge, yet stronger than he could have imagined. Outside, sunlight shimmered on the palace towers, golden against violet stone. The day was not yet over, and the path ahead remained uncertain, but for the first time did not feel like an intruder. He felt part of something larger. The day stretched long, and with it came new challenges had never imagined. Led him out of the palace and into the streets of her city, a place that shimmered like a living jewel. Towers curved toward the sky, floating bridges spanned rivers of light, and citizens moved gracefully, their eyes curious but respectful. Kept his head low, feeling both awed and painfully aware of how foreign he looked. "People will stare," said softly, noticing his unease. "Do not fear it. You are not alone. I will be with you." Nodded, but his chest tightened anyway. Every step he took seemed to echo in the streets, marking him as an outsider. Children peered from behind glowing fountains. Merchants whispered in melodic tones as they passed. Yet, despite the oddity, there was no hatred, only fascination. They arrived at a transport hub where hovering carriages waited silently, powered by crystal energy. Touched one, and it lifted smoothly into the air. "We must leave the city," she said. "There are preparations I must make for the council, but you cannot stay here. Too many eyes, too many questions." Climbed in beside her, hands gripping the edge nervously. The city fell away beneath them, towers shrinking into rivers of gold and violet. For the first time since crashing into her wedding, felt a spark of freedom, the thrill of being alive in a world so unlike his own. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To the fields of Saren," replied. "It is where the elders once meditated and where I find clarity. It is safe and quiet." The journey was longer than expected, stretching over hills that glimmered with flora he had never seen. Flowers with translucent petals leaned toward them as they passed. Rivers of liquid light flowed alongside their path, reflecting the twin suns above. It was breathtaking, but it also reminded him how small he truly was in this universe. Finally, they arrived at the fields of Saren, stepped onto soft grass that sparkled faintly with energy, and the air smelled of wild honey and fresh rain. The silence was profound, broken only by the gentle hum of nature. Took his hand briefly, guiding him to a hill where they could see the valley below. "You need to understand this world," she said, her gaze sweeping the horizon. "And I need to understand you." Swallowed hard, "You want to teach me?" "No," she replied. "I want to see if you can survive it and if your heart can carry what comes next." Her words made his stomach twist, but also ignited a strange courage. Somehow, in this alien world, he felt that courage stretching within him like a muscle he had never used. They spent the day exploring the fields, showing him plants that healed, creatures that glowed faintly at night, and stones that hummed with energy. Tried to absorb it all, stumbling over names and customs, yet feeling a quiet thrill at every discovery. He laughed for the first time in what felt like months, soft, shaky laughter that echoed through the valley. Smiled at him, a rare, unguarded expression that made him feel lighter than he had in years. As twilight descended, stars spilling across the sky in silvery streams, they sat together on a rock overlooking the valley. Leaned her head slightly toward him, her hair brushing his shoulder. Wanted to ask so many questions. Why she chose to fight her duty, why she had spared him, what would happen to her wedding. But words felt small in the presence of this quiet, powerful moment. "Tomorrow," whispered, "we must return, the council will want answers. But tonight, you are not just a human who fell from the sky. You are a companion, a witness, perhaps more than either of us yet knows." His heart pounded. He had never been called anything more than ordinary. And now, under alien suns and starlit skies, he felt something shift inside him. The world that had seemed impossibly distant now felt like it might belong to him. And she, too, might belong to him in ways he did not yet understand. For the first time since his fall, he closed his eyes and allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, some accidents were meant to happen. Morning came slowly, spreading pale light across the fields of Saren. Awoke first, staring at the stars fading into twin suns. Beside him, slept peacefully, her face calm and unguarded. He watched her for a moment, feeling a tenderness he had never expected to feel for someone so unlike himself, someone whose life had been shaped by duty and tradition rather than freedom. When she stirred, she smiled gently at him. "We must return," she said, brushing a strand of starlight-colored hair from her face. "The council waits. They are not kind to delays." Nodded, rising carefully. His body ached slightly from yesterday's long journey, but he did not care. The ache was trivial compared to the weight he now carried. He had a part to play, and a world that might depend on the choices he made. The transport back to the city was quiet. Kept his eyes on the horizon, the rolling hills of Saren slipping beneath them like a vivid dream. His hand brushed his occasionally, small gestures of reassurance and silent trust. It was strange to feel so connected to someone he had met only days ago, yet it felt more natural than any connection he had ever known. They entered the palace again, and the air shifted immediately. The city seemed alive with expectation, citizens watching from their high windows. Guards moved closer, eyes wary but respectful. Could feel the tension coiling in every corridor, every whisper. The council had convened again, and this time the hall was colder, stricter. They were seated as before, their expressions carved from stone. Whispers rippled through the chamber as an entered. The head of the council spoke immediately. "You return," the elder said, voice sharper than before. "Has your human companion learned our ways? Will he answer for his intrusion?" Swallowed, stepping forward. I came here by accident," he said, voice steadier than he expected. "I did not know your customs. I have not harmed anyone intentionally. I only wish to leave peacefully." A murmur swept the council. Some nodded slightly, others remained unyielding. His gaze was unwavering, grounding him. "You speak truth," she said firmly. "But truth alone is not enough. You must understand the consequences of your presence." Nodded again. He realized he did understand them now. He had seen the cost of duty, the weight of expectation, the fragility of a life shaped by others' decisions. And in that moment, he chose not to run. The head of the council regarded him silently for long moments, then leaned forward. "Perhaps," the elder said slowly, There is merit in seeing a world as an outsider sees it. Perhaps a human's perspective, though foreign, can reveal truths that our traditions have hidden. Do you claim this is the path you choose? Stepped forward, her eyes blazing with determination. Yes, I choose to follow what my heart tells me, not only what duty demands, and I choose to stand beside him even if the world resists. The chamber was silent again, but this time it was charged with a different energy. Some council members exchanged uncertain glances. The air felt as if it held its breath. The elder nodded slowly. Then the trial is not over, but the first choice has been made. He turned to. You have entered a world that is not yours, human. Your path from here will be perilous, but you have proven a courage worthy of notice. Felt his chest tighten. Courage. He had never thought of himself as courageous. He had stumbled into a wedding, tumbled into a world not his own, and yet here he was, standing before beings older and wiser than any he had ever known. And for the first time, he realized that courage was not absence of fear. It was acting despite it. His hand found his again, fingers intertwining lightly. Their connection was quiet but strong, a tether against the uncertainty surrounding them. As they left the hall, the city outside seemed to breathe with them, alive yet welcoming. Understood now that his life had changed forever, not by accident, but by choice, by stepping into a world larger than himself and refusing to turn away. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that whatever came next, he would face it not as a mere human who had fallen from the sky, but as someone who had found a place to belong. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden light across the crystalline palace. Today was not the same as the day had crashed into sweating. Today, the halls were filled with anticipation, but the tension had shifted. It was no longer anger or judgment, but the quiet energy of expectation. Stood beside, dressed in ceremonial robes borrowed from her court, strange yet elegant. He felt awkward, aware of the eyes of hundreds upon him, alien faces studying him, some curious, some skeptical. But's hand rested lightly on his, and it grounded him. For the first time, he did not feel like an intruder. The council sat at the front of the hall observing, but their expressions were softer now. They had seen's choice, and through it, they had seen's courage, his willingness to stand in a world not his own. Some of the elders even nodded subtly, acknowledging that fate could be reshaped, even by a human. Turned to him, her violet eyes filled with a mix of strength and vulnerability. She whispered just for him, if you choose to stay, know that it is not an easy path. You will face challenges, misunderstandings, and danger, but it is a path I will walk beside you. Took a deep breath. His heart raced, but he felt a certainty he had never known. I want to stay, he said. I want to be with you, not by accident, not because of fate, but because I choose to. His lips curved into a soft, radiant smile. She turned to the council, raising her voice. Let it be known, the ceremony of union shall proceed by choice, not by duty imposed. I of the 7th Moon Court choose my partner freely. A hush fell over the chamber. Some gasped. Others held their breath. The council murmured among themselves, but none interrupted. For the first time, tradition bowed to choice. Felt the weight of the moment settle on him, then lift in an unexpected lightness. He had entered this world as a stranger, a crash landing in someone else's life. And now he was being asked to become a part of it, not as an intruder, but as a partner, a companion, a human given a place beside a queen. Extended her hand toward him. Will you walk with me into this life? She asked, her voice soft but resolute. Took her hand without hesitation. I will, he said, feeling his chest swell with emotion he could not name, fear, hope, love, and wonder all wrapped into one. The ceremony began. Music unlike anything had heard rose and flowed through the hall, melodic yet grounding, familiar yet alien. His hair shimmered in the light as they walked side by side to the altar, each step a promise, each glance a recognition of the extraordinary journey that had brought them here. The council spoke blessings in their melodious language, words did not fully understand but felt in his bones. The citizens of the city watched in awe, some with tears, some with quiet smiles. And through it all, he held his hand, feeling the warmth and strength that had carried him through fear, uncertainty, and strangeness. When the ceremony ended, turned to him. Our lives are no longer defined by what is expected of us, she said. They are ours together. Looked around at the radiant city, the glowing palace, the alien faces filled with wonder. Then he looked at her, at the woman who had taught him courage, guided him through chaos, and chosen him not because he belonged, but because he had proven he could. He smiled a full, genuine smile. Together, he echoed. And in that moment, the universe itself seemed to pause, as if acknowledging that sometimes the most powerful destinies are not those written by duty or stars, but by the hearts that dare to choose. Had crashed into a wedding by accident, but he walked away with something far greater, a life, a love, and a place in a world that had once seemed impossibly distant. He was human, yes, fragile and uncertain, but in his eyes he had found a home. The skies above shimmered in twilight, the twin suns dipping low, casting long golden paths across the city. Together they stepped forward, hand in hand, ready to face a future that neither had expected, yet both had chosen. An accidental beginning transformed into a lifetime of possibility. And in the hearts of those who witnessed it, a quiet truth lingered. Sometimes humanity, flawed, fragile, fearless, was the spark that could change worlds.